We believe to be in full control of our lives. As a matter of fact, our characteristics and the situations that happen in our lives are almost fully determined by psychological algorithms. But what is a psychological algorithm and how does it impact the lives of people? In the world of computers, algorithms are parts of the source code that make programs and apps work. Psychological algorithms are parts of the source code that make the programs and apps of your psychological structure work. The codes in your psychological structure determine directly your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, beliefs, purpose, motivation, professional performance, spiritual development, and even people you attract and situations that happen to you. As a mind hacker, I can map with precision the source code of psychological algorithms, optimize it, and even rewrite it. But before we move any further, I want to let you know the cornerstone of my life and work. In order to reprogram the code, I use only the information that comes directly from your soul, yourself, free from the interference of your ego or mine. I'm Cavalher. In order to understand how mapping and rewriting the source code of a psychological algorithm can take you to a life that is indeed new, it is necessary to destroy an illusion. People almost always believe that psychological topics are too subjective, imprecise, impossible to define. This myth exists because people do not know how the system works. In fact, consciousness and the unconscious mind work with the precision of an exact science. My role as a mind hacker is to map with precision the algorithms of your consciousness and the unconscious mind. The exact map of your consciousness and unconscious mind reveals the psychological algorithm, the source code that determines everything that happens inside you and in your life. The code you can change in order to change the reality of your life. This is the example of the psychological algorithm of a person. As a matter of fact, this is my own algorithm, the dynamics I was going through a few years ago. I chose it because I felt this was a good opportunity to tell you a little bit of my story. But wait, that's too complex. Let's start from the beginning of my story. Let's rewind it. My childhood was very unconventional, at least what I can remember, because a part of it is quite obscure for me. I did not play much. In the little town I grew in, there was a club with toys, sports courts, and swimming pools. I hated going there. When my father wanted to punish me, he would send me there. Weird, isn't it? Let me tell you a secret. Everybody is weird. What I really liked to do was reading. I read quite a lot. That was my world. I was alone most of the time. Of course, I was not at ease with people of my age. I would rather talk to my parents as friends, and they were much older than my parents. Reading non-stop and talking to clever and mature people, I grew more and more enlightened, erudite, and rational. Our society stimulates rationality very much. That lasted until I was 23. At that time, all that rationality, all that erudition started to irritate me. I started to realize that I was not at ease in any relationship and was afraid of showing who I was. I was shy and compensated that being arrogant. Yes, I do have psychological imbalance and problems, just like you do, just like everybody does. The few friends I had in my childhood had stayed in the past. I had moved to São Paulo and had no friends. I hadn't had any dates in the last 3 years. I was imprisoned in a repetitive situation. I was too isolated and started to feel lonely. Concurrently, I was unable to find the cause of the problem. Yes, I am unconscious of many things, just like you are, just like everybody is. How could I find the cause of the problem if everything was fine? I had just moved to the city I wanted, my career was improving fast, I was making money, and I was single. Well, I like being single. Being stuck in repetitive situations and unable to find the cause is something that happens very often in people's lives. Repetitive situations are superficial manifestations, symptoms. However, since they hurt, they generally are the reason why people hire a mind hacker. As a mind hacker, when I see repetitive situations going on, I know they are the tip of the iceberg, and I immediately ask myself, what psychological algorithm is present in the unconscious mind and is causing specifically these repetitive situations? When I am mind hacking, I start to map the psychological algorithm by the only thing that is at hand, the imprisoning repetitive situation, the symptom, the painful situation. In my own story, the repetitive situation was isolation and loneliness. At that time, I was having a recurrent dream. Have you ever had recurrent dreams? Recurrent dreams are desperate messages sent by our souls. The images that the soul puts in our dreams show us what is really going on with us. I was dreaming I was going up in an elevator. When the elevator was already very high, it would fall into darkness. Obviously, I would panic and wake up. The dream was simple. The important thing was what it symbolized. My soul was showing me that I was using the elevator too much, seeking too much elevation. The consequence was obvious and dangerous. If I continued to seek elevation, I would fall. This is the main reason why it is mandatory to use information that comes directly from the soul and free from the interference of the ego and processes of consciousness development, instead of following standardized spiritual guidance, which is the same for everyone. We receive individual orientation created by the soul directly and exclusively for us. The standard spirituality, the one everybody believes in and repeats without even thinking on it, teaches that we should always and progressively elevate ourselves spiritually. However, through my dreams, my soul was teaching me that I was too elevated, probably too spiritual. But how? I started to ask myself, how was I too elevated? Considering the dream, it was very easy to see. I was working with spirituality the whole day, and in my spare time, I was studying more and more spirituality. Like the elevator in my dreams, I was going up too much. I was literally over my head. Meanwhile, I complained about loneliness. Of course, I was alone. Who would stand relating to a super rational guy that studies all day long? Annoying, unbearable. The first layer of the algorithm had been finally mapped and revealed. But the first layer is still too superficial. I needed more comprehension, more precision. Knowing that rationalization and erudition were also repetitive situations caused by my psychological algorithm, I started to observe how those things manifested themselves when I tried to relate to people. I realized that when I was with people, I felt a strong urge to show off my knowledge and intelligence. Who can stand that? Of course people disliked that. When I became aware of what I was unconsciously doing, I disliked it too. But when I asked myself why I was doing that, I realized I was trying to be accepted by people. Deep down, I was needy. Deep down, I was in pain. Deep down, everybody feels some kind of pain. Deep down, everybody is human. The second layer of the psychological algorithm had been mapped. However, even the second layer was still superficial. I would need to go deeper. I started to study another source of transcendental information, my astrological chart. At that time, the planetoid Chiron was opposing my rising sign. Chiron is a really strong planet in my chart. Those who study the symbols present in astrology and dreams study mythology a lot. Mythology is life's user guide. Chiron's mythology was extremely revealing to me. Chiron is a very rational god. His vast knowledge extends from mathematics to medicine, from sports to astrology. Chiron is the master of heroes. That's very close to my story, isn't it? His mythology reveals the reason why Chiron specialized himself so much and became so rational. He was rejected at birth. All the rejection I experienced in my childhood surfaced at once. I remember all the times people treated me as a freak for being a nerd, for being interested in spirituality, or any other reason. I remembered all the times no one would go out with me, no one would go to parties with me, no one would visit me at home. My loneliness had not started at 23, but at 8. When I acknowledged it, my dreams showed me I had reached the necessary level of precision in my psychological algorithms mapping. When that point is reached, it is time to go to the next level. It is time to stop to only map the algorithm and intervene directly on it. A precise comprehension is very important. You are going to intervene directly in the code that causes the situations that happen in your life. You need to know exactly what you are doing. The psychological algorithm revealed that the painful rejection I had endured during my childhood was still present, and since then was forcing me to study more and more in order to stand out and be accepted. The unconscious mind is able to force you to behave in a certain way, attract certain types of people, and cause concrete situations in your life. The unconscious mind is the boss. If you want to know more about how the unconscious mind causes things in your life, watch the suggested video. Following the transcendental information coming from my dreams and astrological chart, from my soul, I decided to eliminate the initial line of the source code of the psychological algorithm. I decided to take concrete action. When I felt the pain of rejection again, I would no longer respond to that, studying more, spiritualizing myself more, showing off my knowledge in order to be accepted. I decided to simply stand the pain. When we develop the exact consciousness of the imprisonment in repetitive situations caused by the psychological algorithm, it is time to rewrite the source code. In order to do that, one must take concrete actions. This way we can interfere in the concrete situations that the unconscious mind causes in our lives. It is important not to focus in the symptoms only, but in the causes that are deeply rooted in the unconscious mind, in the causes that your soul alone is able to reveal to you. When we interfere in this exact point, in the initial line of the algorithm, with enough consciousness and action, the soul takes its own action. The soul's action is beyond you and me. The soul's action transcends us. The soul is transcendental. My soul showed me something that was completely beyond the boundaries of my perception and comprehension, something unimaginable for me at the time. I had not been rejected for being annoying, weird, or repulsive. I had been rejected because my ideas were different. People prefer to be just like everybody else is. They prefer to think like everybody else does. They prefer to just repeat what everybody else is saying without thinking. When you do that, you feel more acceptance. You feel safer among the crowd. Different ideas are disturbing. Different ideas require you to think. Different ideas force us to be that which we fear the most, ourselves. Imagine my astonishment when I realized that I was still having different ideas. Imagine my astonishment when I realized that the way the world of working and business currently refers to different ideas is innovative ideas. But the transcendental action of the soul is not only revealing things, the soul also builds new intelligences and new abilities. In my own being, the soul built the courage to acknowledge an innovative idea as well as to show my creation to the public. I didn't have to hide behind my rationality and the knowledge I had of the ideas of the great masters any longer. I didn't have to try to draw attention upon myself any longer. I now had my own idea, my own creation. The paradigm of sense was born, the reality of those who successfully completed the individuation process described by Carl Jung in his Jungian psychology. The reality of the spirit beyond the reality of the soul. A reality with 5 dimensions, multi-paradoxical and multidimensional, in which people experience the freedom to be and the ability to edit the reality itself. I wanted to tell you my story to show that I have problems and wounds like everybody else, that I am unconscious of many things like everybody else, that I am human like everybody else. All of us face problems, wounds, and pains. I think it is very sad when people hide their pain from themselves, pretending to be 100% successful and happy. People like that are at the very least superficial, usually infantile, sometimes inhuman. Depth, maturity, and wisdom come from acknowledging that life encompasses problems and success, pain, and happiness. However, we don't need to remain ignorant, not knowing the causes of our problems and pain, not knowing the mechanisms that rule our lives. We don't need to sink in our pain. The unconscious mind is a kind of intelligence. It builds repetitive situations to teach you things. Understanding with precision the causes of our problems and pain, as well as the mechanisms that rule our lives, breaks the vicious circles and takes us to a life that is indeed new. We discover new abilities and exclusive gifts. We discover that we are all unique. The transcendental action of the soul is exactly this, transforming our biggest wound in our biggest treasure.